You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
Welcome to the Recovered Life Show, Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. How you doing, Kristina Dennis?
I'm doing great, Damon Frank. How are you? Happy hump day.
Yes, I am doing fabulous. We are careening towards the middle of July, and I'm thrilled about that. There's so much stuff going on in the Recovered Life community, and I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have today. I think the topic is interesting. I think a lot of people are going to relate to this, and a lot of people have had problems with this. So I'm so thrilled that we're going to be talking about confrontation and why it's difficult in sobriety.
Oh, yeah. Before we confront confrontation, though, I want to thank everybody for all of your continued support. Please like, share, follow the show, send it to a friend, let people know that we're out here. You can also join our community, which is on recoveredlife.us. It's a completely free community. It's a wonderful platform where we connect, we grow our community. You will get free access to coaching and exclusive content. We use an app called Volley. So you'll actually meet people all over the world who are in recovery like you. It is recoveredlife.us. When you go, join and make sure to tell me hi, because I'd love to get to know you.
We love it when people join us on Volley because, you know, it's so great because we do this thing called the Daily Drink where I come on with a message every day. People can get it. They comment back, they text back, whatever works for you. It's so great because really a better recovery is about connection. That's what it's really about. We're learning to connect with people in a deeper, more meaningful way in recovery. And Volley makes it so much easier for us to do that. So thank you, everyone that has joined us there. So I promised a good one today, Kristina. Confrontation. Why is it so darn difficult in sobriety? Look, we were fighting everything and everyone when we were out there doing our thing. But now we're in sobriety, we're afraid to talk with anybody or confront anyone.
Well, and I think that it's really important to recognize that when I was drinking, this person that was so confrontational was not my real self. It really wasn't. You know, I will be confrontational. Over certain little people in my life. You know, if somebody messes with my son, Mama Bear comes out. But I remember right at the beginning, I had this view of myself that other people kind of didn't seem that they aligned with. And it really surprised me, and this might be the case for anybody who's newer in sobriety, how truly people saw me as an angry person. I didn't believe I was angry. I thought, this is just what you say. This is just what you do. You tell the truth. You get in there. You handle it. And when I got sober, I decided, okay, I better have a different value system, right? And started focusing on my part and trying to do everything right. You know, I was still using my good old character defect of perfectionism, trying to present this person. And then I really started to work on my codependency. And I realized the number one fear, the reason why I struggle with confrontation is my extreme fear of abandonment.
That's interesting. So so how do you feel that works in? So if you feel that you're going to confront somebody, that they're going to leave, basically.
Yes. Then that says something about me. That says I'm not worthy. That is my number one fear. And a lot of adult children of alcoholics, this is their number one fear. You know, in the big book of AA, they talk about resentment, right? So we all run around trying to have restraint of pen and tongue, right? We're not saying anything. We're not sharing it. We're working on our gratitude. We're not focusing on our negatives. But what I discovered was that I was actually showing up in a very dishonest way when I wasn't willing to confront circumstances or situations. I look at it a lot less as confronting people as I do, trying to strengthen the relationship. Well, with adult children of alcoholics, it's the fear of abandonment that, makes us say yes to everything and keep moving forward.
Well, I think that just on a really superficial level, when we look at
Hmm.
confrontation, of course it's going to be different, especially if you're drinking and doing drugs, right?
Yes,
Your barrier, that filter is gone. So a lot
absolutely.
of the times, look, I think everybody's got a fourth and fifth step if they're in a 12-step program of things that they have done and said or
Yes,
believed or acted out on that now we go like, man, in further inspection, like 4 minutes or a minute or 30 seconds,
yes,
I would have realized that was a stupid thing. But if you don't have a filter, right, and it just blah, right, it comes out. So
yes,
I think most of anyone who comes into recovery looks at situations and maybe things that they said or did or acted on that they regret looking back on
yes.
it now, and confrontation is probably one of those. But I'm going to take this a step deeper. I know you're talking about codependency, and I know the fear of being abandoned, and I think
Hmm.
that that's there too. But one of the things that's you mentioned the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it says something in there, and it says we're going to cease fighting everything and everyone. One of
Yes,
the things that I got out of confrontation is, it's funny because you knew I picked a career that all I did was having to confront people most of the
exactly.
time for a long period of time. But it's interesting because the confrontation side of it, you realize there's many battles that just aren't worth fighting. People are going to
Exactly.
believe, that's where I've come into my life. It's like, they're wrong. I believe they're
Hmm.
wrong, or I believe they're
Hmm.
wrong, right? They might not be, but I believe it. And the fact of the matter is I have empirical data where I know they're wrong, but it doesn't
Exactly.
really matter. It's not worth it for me to get all riled up and to pull myself out of the here and now and to risk relationships for opinions that don't matter.
Yes,
I
yes,
really have come to that place. Now, it took me a while to get to that place. I don't believe that's for everything. I believe, one of my hot button issues, Kristina, is injustice. If I feel
yes,
that there's been injustice with myself or a family member or a friend, I go absolutely crazy and I'll
yes.
start confront. But even then, I start to say, look, is this a fight worth fighting? I never
Right.
asked myself that when I was actively an alcoholic.
Well, and I think that what you're talking about is reaction versus response. And so the boundaries that we set, the ability to react and confront somebody in active anger, active alcoholism is not the same as coming to the truth and learning how to communicate with people. And so really it's false confrontation, right? When we're just blowing back at somebody, it's a reaction, it's a nervous system that's been shot, it's undisciplined behavior. And so, like most of us, we're black and white. We kind of go to this other extreme where we just let things happen because we
Yeah.
don't know exactly what we're supposed to say. That is codependency. When we are not sharing our truth because we want to please the other person or keep the peace at all costs, then we are also abandoning ourselves, which is the ironic part. We're saying yes to everything because we don't want to be abandoned by somebody else, but we're abandoning ourselves every time by not protecting our needs and wants and not expressing them. And it is one of the hardest. It's not as easy as drinking and not drinking, right? It isn't. It's when do you confront an issue? When do you decide to do the hard thing? And I think it takes time to learn this new language.
Well, there's components of this, Kristina, that are similar to the workaholism thing.
Mhm.
That deep down, there's something else going on beyond just the workaholism, right? I find this with confrontation too in coaching and working with alcoholics and people that are suffering from addiction that are trying to get sober, right? One of the things that you find a lot is habitual lying, right?
Yes,
Not and for no particular reason, right? Like this.
exactly.
We talk about this all the time. Like it would be easier just to say the truth. No, I wore a
Yes.
blue shirt, but no, they insist that it was green, even though everybody knows that it's blue, right? And I think that this is a lot. This is tied into confrontation. I think there are
Mm.
times that you do need to confront people and to tell the truth. Like, I was in the situation that you were talking about we were talking about the other day, where I had to tell somebody, it's like, no, you know what? I don't want to be treated like that.
Right.
Or that's not a fair assessment of the situation. I feel that this is not fair, right? Or I feel that you're incorrect about this. Or I really don't appreciate that you did this, right? Some action.
Yes,
Now, this has to do with really truth with a capital T. You expressing
absolutely.
your feelings about what you feel and believe and what you know to be the truth, right? And sometimes it's obvious, but I think people don't want to tell the truth. People are afraid of the truth because the
Yes.
truth will break open a lot of other things that they might not know, that people might realize that they're not as secure as they're projecting. Now, I think
Yes.
people know that have emotional sobriety and have some sort of emotional intelligence, understand that that's posturing because they
Yes.
don't really want to go there, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And when they're evading or coming up with reasons why they have no fault in it, it's pretty easy to start seeing that after a while and knowing who is somebody that you want to have a deeper relationship with. Dishonesty is very prevalent in addiction. I know I was a liar like nobody's business. And again, I had to see that on a 4-step inventory. And there were some times where I knew why I was lying. And then there were some times where it had just become a terrible habit, that didn't make any difference to the other person. It was bravado or it was making up fantasy. And once I started embracing honesty, once I had to do that awful, I just lied to you and I'm not exactly sure why. This is,
Yeah.
actually what happened. I only made $100. I don't know why I told you I made 500. I mean, I knew why, right? It was this game I was playing. I didn't feel like I was enough showing up exactly as I am. And so there is that honesty, that value system that we check into. But when it comes to other people or confronting difficult situations, most alcoholics are really scared people, if you ask me. I mean, I was a really scared person. You wouldn't have known it, but I was really afraid of not being liked or taken care of or, being appreciated. And so I would get this fantasy, this invisible contract with somebody where I was going to do everything for them and then they should in turn do everything for me. I wasn't really giving out of my openness or my beautiful heart. I wanted to have some kind of transaction. And
Yeah.
so when they didn't, then I was confrontational. And it was all based on dishonesty.
Well, this is the whole thing about too, is that, I mean, I think we would say in the coaching business, the doormat clients, the people
Yes.
that will take everything, right? And you're
Hmm.
trying to get them to a place where they understand that they can assert boundaries and that they can
Yes.
stand up and say, that doesn't work for me. I don't like pizza. I want to go to
Hmm.
Chinese food, right? Like,
Yes.
like just simple little things that we talk about, like being able to set boundaries. But a lot of the times what happens in addiction are we pick people that, and even in sobriety, like you and I talk about this all the time on a personal level, we pick people that are going to really play a role that we're playing out, not because they're the best friends for us or the people that
No.
interest us the most, or we get something out of it and we give something in the relationship. It's literally to fulfill a broken mechanism, right?
Yes.
And
I'm
we
going to
see
fix
this
it.
all the time. Yeah, we're going to fix this. But then what happens is when people set boundaries, they're then shocked all of a sudden when they don't have that person that they picked who's never had a track record
Mm-mm.
of being accommodating to anyone's boundaries. Say, I
Right.
don't give a crap about your, and they're shocked, and it
Right.
freezes people, right? And they think, well, I don't want to set boundaries and confront anybody about being mistreated or about how I would like things to go, because obviously I'm the minority here.
Right.
Everybody isn't. No, you've just picked wrong people in your life.
Well, you know, that's one way to think about it. Or you picked somebody that you could learn the lesson with. Of course, we
Yeah.
pick familiar patterns. You know, if you
Better
were
way to
raised,
say it. Better way.
yeah, if you raised with somebody saying, come here, stay away, come here, stay away, there is going to be this desire for you to right the wrong. You know, I know for me, I absolutely gravitated to the one person who had nothing to give, because I believed that if I could get that person to love me, then I was really, really lovable. And my grandparents had it wrong. It was about them. And so I would pick the person that, you know, the most unloving person that I could find. And rather than, you know, be, you know, negative toward that former Christy, I'm more compassionate toward her, understanding. But codependency, everybody thinks it's the person being really clinging and wants so much from that person. That's just the way it's expressing itself. Anxious attachment is what people think about when they think of a codependent. But a codependent can also be avoidant, right? It's ultimately the fear of intimacy. Vulnerability is one of the scariest things that we can even imagine. Even though we demand it from somebody else, we are the last to give it. And that talks and speaks to honesty. You know, if I say,
Absolutely.
I don't want pizza, they may leave. And your adult head says, that's crazy. Why are you doing that? You know, what are you doing? Why are you a doormat? It has all this judgment. It speaks to unhealed trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I want to dive into that, Kristina, after this quick break, because
Yes.
people are listening to this and they're saying, okay, yes, I have a problem with confrontation, even if it's healthy
Mm-hmm.
confrontation, even
Yes.
if it's me setting a boundary and the person doesn't necessarily respect that. How do you do it right? How do you
Yes.
confront people in the right way? We're going to dive into that after this quick break. If you are newly sober, trying to get sober, or you've been sober for decades and are looking to take your sobriety to the next level, the Recovery Breakthrough 6-week transformation concierge coaching program might be right for you. Have Damon Frank and Kristina Dennis build a custom roadmap to get you on the path to getting what you really need. Receive hands-on concierge coaching and stay focused and productive with our daily check-ins. If you're ready to experience your recovery breakthrough and start the journey towards the transformation you deserve, book a free Get to Know You call today and find out what is possible in your recovery. To find out more about Recovery Breakthrough and to book your free call, go to recoveredlife.us. That's recoveredlife.us.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show.
Okay, Kristina, we're talking about confrontation today. We're talking why it's difficult in sobriety. It's difficult. Listen,
Yes.
It's difficult. We promised everybody that we would talk after the break about how to confront people in a right way. And also I want to talk about what happens if it doesn't work out the way that you think it's going to.
Right. Or the way you don't want it to. It's this drives people crazy, but in codependency recovery, we often show up wanting that other person to change, right? And so just like in Al-Anon or recovery, or if you're through family systems recovery program, you realize that we don't have any control over them. And some of the negotiation, some of the, trying to get that addict or that other person to do what we want them to do is simply manipulation. And of course, it's because we're afraid, right? We want what we think is the best, right? So when we start working on recovery from codependency, which allows us to transmit our boundaries, even before we open our mouth, we got to figure out who we are first and foremost. Once you start learning who you are, then it's a little easier to have a sense of self, to make a boundary, to really figure out what it is that you want. And I'm not saying that codependents and active addicts that find recovery can't stay together, but it's a completely new, it's a full-on new relationship from the beginning. So as you start identifying as a codependent, the first and foremost thing is to work on sense of self and figuring out who we are. And that sounds a little, it's a little different than recovering from alcohol, where we stop thinking about ourselves so much. But we have to do that as codependents. We have to learn how to take care of ourselves. Once we have an idea.
And I think you need your boundaries, right? You need to also know your boundaries, because this is the thing real quick. I got to jump in real quick on this, because you said something that is so good. It's like you said, you have to know what you want, basically. Right.
Yes.
And the thing is that a lot of people don't know what they want. That's a problem. But two, they don't know how to actually set their boundaries, right?
They don't. It's the scariest thing in the world to say no. And I always tell people, start first, like you said, first you got to know what you want. You know how many times I've sat across with somebody and said, well, what do you want from this relationship? And they don't know. They don't believe that they can ask. They don't believe that they have any worth, or that the other person has any capability of giving it to them. And so they've picked this person kind of on purpose, right? To reject them, because that feels comfortable. Yeah. That's familiar. And so one of the scariest things in the world in recovery is to learn how to start showing up as yourself and ask for what you need. And I always tell people, start with something little. Start setting boundaries with people that you know you can trust. Start telling them, I have noticed that I do not take care of myself in the best manner. And so I'm going to practice boundaries, with you. And then start just practicing these phrases. Like, actually, I prefer to do this. I mean, that's one of the easiest ways to not say anything negative about what the other person is offering as a suggestion. It's saying what you want. And boundaries are simply, they can be as simple as that. Wait, what do I actually want in this situation?
Well, and to clarify it too, I think one of the things that I've experienced in working with people in recovery, especially young men, like I'm going to say late 20s, early 30s, that are on the dating scene. They've gotten sober, they've got some time. Now they're going out and dating, right? And inevitably I'll get that call for that session or whatever, and they'll say, "Oh my God, this is such a train wreck, and this person drinks a lot, and I don't know if I can," right? And I was like, hey, that's a boundary for you. Like, you're not going to be around. You really can't be around somebody if you want to stay sober long-term that does that, right? And they'll barter that back and forth, that boundary back and forth. And I found one of the biggest things is finding out what you want and putting it down on paper. And it's funny that when I have the conversation, I have them read back what they want. I'm like going, okay, you're dating a couple of people. This person you're obsessed with, there's nothing on this list that you want. Like, they need consistency. They need somebody who's not erratic. They have trust issues. Maybe they don't want somebody to say, this person's cheated on you 3 times, or right? Like, you've been with them a month, right? Like, you're going to be in constant confrontation, because they're going to be going over your boundaries all the time. But what about this person over here that has everything on your list and is crazy about you, right? And then they start to see it. It's like, oh, okay, I should have put down some boundaries here. Because now I'm way in too deep, and I have to paddle closer to the shore because I can drown at any minute.
Well, and see, to me, the person that you were describing that's over here that's crazy about you, it's our person's fear of intimacy that keeps us. We codependents don't want to be in an intimate relationship, even though it looks like we're clamoring and trying to get somebody else to love us. The truth is if somebody turned around and said, and did it, we'd run for the hills, because it's that fear of value. I don't have enough value. I can't trust you because I will get hurt. And so I'm going to stay over here with this negative pattern because I don't really have to show up, honestly. I mean, when you are not able to express what you need and want with somebody, you are setting it up to fail already. And sad to say, you're doing it probably on purpose. That's not fun to look at.
No, it's not. And I got to be honest, one of the hardest things to learn in recovery for me, was that sometimes I was seeking out people that would inevitably lead to all kinds of confrontation, because deep down inside, I believe that that was love, right? Because,
Yes.
you know, if you had that as a model, confrontation growing up, if you come from an alcoholic household and confrontation was the status quo, you associate that with, well, that's got to be a loving relationship because there's confrontation there all the time. That's not a loving
Yes.
relationship, right? Like, so the thing is that it's at these models too. I think you have to look at these models. I do believe there's times that you have to confront people. Look,
Yes.
especially in today's daily world, people are
Mm-hmm.
crazy sometimes, and you have to look. You have to confront injustice when things are going bad. When sometimes you do have to interject yourself when it's uncomfortable. When maybe something's not fair going on at work,
Right.
or
Right.
there has been an injustice to you, or you have to speak up to do the right thing to defend somebody else. There's going to be confrontation there, but it's this constant confrontation and us slamming ourselves into these situations, or any type of confrontation you run from. That's another
Yes.
problem, right? We see that a lot too.
Right. Right. And it's learning who you are and what you want. It is becoming ultimately 100% responsible for your own happiness. As long as we don't have to become responsible, we can blame other people. Right. If we leave our happiness up to this partner or this job or that employer, we get to absolve. And the freedom is actually assuming the responsibility and realizing the only person who is supposed to make us happy is us. That's our job. And everything else on top of that is a bonus. And when you are able to show up as a whole person in a relationship, so you have to admit you're not really whole yet, then another whole person will find that attractive, and the two of you will be able to create a third interdependent relationship.
And I think listening is too. We hear this a lot in recovered life discussions where people have problems with their family when they come into recovery, that they'll tell their parents, hey, I can't drink, or a
Hmm.
sibling, like, I don't want to be the role of the screw up in the family anymore. That's not who I
Yes.
am. Right.
Nope.
And people will fight back. And I think you also have to be able to walk away once you've stated it, to be able to just state it clearly. It's like, you know what? Hey, this is a boundary.
Hmm.
Yes, this is uncomfortable to confront. And just to be honest, it's like, this is uncomfortable. I don't want
Right.
to confront you. I remember the first time that I had to fire somebody when I
Hmm.
owned a business. It was horrible. I mean,
Yes.
I did not want to be that person. I loved to be the guy who hired people. I hated to be the guy who fired people. But I learned that sometimes I had to
Absolutely.
say, hey, you haven't showed up for a week, and this
Yes.
is the fifth time you've done it. Like, that doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really, really hard. But I think this whole practice of being able to do healthy confrontation is very good for us in recovery.
It so is. And, with couples, there's a couple of books that I recommend people get that allow them to ask questions and practice communication. And it is just, I mean, if it's never been modeled to you, there is no way that you're going to know it. And trust me, that the love that's out there, even relationships as a whole, most of them are based on a dominator model and codependency. And so, for those of us who are going to say, I used to be addicted to excitement, and now I really want contentment, and I'm looking for somebody else who wants that, that takes courage, but it also takes practice.
It does take courage. It does take courage. And, for people who are afraid, of confronting people, what I will say is, when I've had to do it and I don't enjoy it, I don't,
Mm,
look, it's not something that I love to do every day,
mm-mm.
but I've learned it's gotten easier. I'm able to live with my truth of being able to say, and to be open to, and to be able to say, like, look, this is the way that I see it. But if you don't see it that way, I'm willing to have a conversation about it. Right.
Yes.
Like, being open and being a good listener and being able to listen to what the other person has to say. And, one of the freedoms of recovery, Christine, I think for me, is to be okay with it not being okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's something I've learned the hard way, but it's okay that
Right.
things aren't okay all the time.
It is okay that things aren't okay. That is a true representation of life. That says your feet are on the ground and you're actually living your life. And as anything, the more that we get used to that, the more that we're okay flying through the air in the middle of a trapeze, the more we realize that that's actually life.
Kristina, this has been an amazing show. Any last thoughts about confrontation, about any of the subject, anything that people need to know? I know you talk about it a lot on your Setting Healthy Boundaries, Recovered Life discussions that we do every week.
Yes, I think that the first thing that people need to know when they're trying to learn setting healthy boundaries is that it starts with sense and love of self. That self-love is actually the first step.
This has been an amazing show. Thank you so much, Kristina Dennis. This is going to be, the show is in the can for Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. Everybody go out and live your best recovered life. We'll see you next episode.
Bye.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.